today's podcast, we're going to focus on the job of an analyst at the FBS level, what that means, and what opportunities that it creates in the coaching profession. And joining me to discuss that is the Senior Analyst of Special Teams at West Virginia, Tyler Hancock. Tyler, great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me on, Keith. Excited about it.
So, Tyler, let's talk a little bit about your background. For you, high school was you were a quarterback, and you went on and coached a little bit with quarterbacks, but you ended up in this special teams role. So I'm interested to learn how you got to this, just starting with what was it that really spurred you on to become a football coach?
Yeah, so played from age 6 on, and love the game, love watching NFL, college, high school, any level really. And then once my playing career was done, I worked a couple camps and found a lot of encouragement in coaching and getting feedback from players. Just being around the game for so long, you pick up on a lot more than you think as you get into a coaching role. So kind of started out at Division II level in high school, and then volunteered for a couple years, worked with offense, defense, just trying to add some value and find a niche. And then a special teams opportunity came about, and it was something that I wasn't interested in at the time, to be honest, but then you get to deal with the whole team and offensive, defensive players and learn the different techniques and scheme, and then find out really how important that third of the game is, which for so long had been a secret. But now a lot of teams are investing in, so it's been a really fun role to be a part of.
So the analyst role, which you have not served as an analyst your entire career, but that's the role you're in right now. And as I look at analyst jobs in football, I've seen those, especially just in the last few years, really starting to evolve in how much you see those guys helping in the creation of the game plan, really taking the film work that they do, now starting to fold in more analytics, deeper analytics, and understanding both your team and the other team as well, so that you could put together game plans and practice plans and continue to keep the team working towards that reaching their full potential. So for you, and as you stepped into that role, being somebody who was used to being on the field and now in this different role, what was that transition like for you, and what things, I guess, did you have to learn that maybe hadn't been part of your coaching toolbox before?
Yeah, a couple things, Keith. You can't, when you want to correct a player immediately on the field, you got to remember you're in an off-the-field role, and that kind of knee-jerk reaction, you got to stop and understand and not overstep compliance. That's the first part as far as the coaching aspect. And then the second part, just with the analyst role, it's a lot of behind the scenes work, whether that's roster management, practice plans, player meeting prep, player, practice review. There's a whole lot of behind the scenes, a lot of stuff that you do as a graduate assistant. And it's a lot of getting ready for your team, making sure you got the right plan where you're mapping things out, a couple weeks at a time to stay ahead, and then presenting the plan to those who are involved in it, and then get everybody on the same page where you can go attack it and go execute the plan.
So for you in the special teams phase, take us through, in season, what a typical week looks like as far as the workflow that you're going to do as an analyst.
Yeah, so starting on Sunday after a game, Sunday is really the busiest day where you're getting the grade sheets finalized from the previous game, and then it's a quick turnaround to put that game to bed and get on to the next opponent. So the goal is really to stay ahead a few days or hopefully a week where you can close the chapter on one game and get prepared for the next one. And Sunday is really the most critical day, and then that bleeds into game plan meeting with the head coach and the assistant coaches involved in special teams. That's on a Monday. We practice on Monday, so you're getting the practice plan, the initial game plan all kind of laid out on a Monday, and then go walk through it with the players, have meetings, go walk through, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, balancing the different phases, making sure you're getting the drill work as well as the scheme. Really Tuesday, Wednesday, the intro is about over. So you're lining up quick, getting the game plan executed, and then going to practice it at a full speed tempo on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, kind of later in the week, most of the game plan is in. You still got maybe some fakes to execute, or your field goal block, your onside, enhanced team schemes. Those go in a little bit later in the week. And then Friday, quick walkthrough, get ready for player meetings in the hotel, make sure they got their tips and reminders ready to go, and then go get ready to play on Saturday. So kind of feel like I've got the groove down, doing it for a few years, where Sunday's not as busy, but it's really inevitable, right? Like there's a lot to prepare for, a lot to get communicated, so that Saturday you're greased up, everybody's ready to roll.
With the different roles that you mentioned, some assistant coaches being involved, a coordinator, etc. What's the structure like for you guys, and how you organize your coaching staff at West Virginia as far as taking care of each unit?
Yeah, I think it's a really unique way how we set it up with special teams. So we got our special teams coordinator who oversees everything. He's in charge of a unit, and then we split up the rest of the staff to have a role on each special teams unit, whether that's the unit lead for one of the main four phases, or if that's coaching the gunners. There's like our tight end coach handles the gunners, so he's in charge of that. So yeah, just getting the whole plan coordinated and talked through. And we got some great coaches here where it's certainly not me that has all the answers. I lean on them, and we've created a kind of a culture on special teams where it is a true third of the game, and you are getting buy-in from players and coaches, even from the top down. So really I think it's kind of a growing trend where you've got an analyst such as myself in the role who can sort of be the engine, the eyes behind the plan, and stay ahead and map things out and anticipate any issues or problems that may happen. And then, there's so many eyes on special teams that you're able to be successful and really gain an edge in that phase of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And I know, in the role that you serve, and when I was at Baldwin Wallace, I had a student assistant. He had played for me, was on my kick return unit, which was the unit I was in charge of. I was also the offensive coordinator. And I know in that year, taught him how to break down film, what we were looking for, looking for what might be our best returns that week, and basically we carried a right, a left, and then a counter to each. And then any special things we needed to prepare for. And he would spend his time breaking those things down for me, which I can't tell you how much more he was able to put into that than probably I would, just given the amount of time I had to put into an offensive game plan. How many different coaches are you working with in that way that, you're breaking? You mentioned, having somebody who's in charge of the gunners or somebody who's in charge of a whole unit. But being able to break down all those components and really help those guys prepare their players and execute on game day.
Yeah, so it ends up being all 10 of the assistant coaches as well as the head coach have a part. They've all got a piece in special teams. The big four: kickoff, kick return, punt return, and then we've got a unit lead for field goal, a unit lead for field goal block. Our defensive coordinator has a role on the kickoff team. Like when we break into individual, he's coaching a certain position and teaching them to execute the techniques that we have laid out. And giving them some different things to expect being on the kickoff team. So it's top to bottom. Everybody's involved. Everybody's got a piece, and that, creates a lot of ownership and even furthermore excitement for special teams, which is, something in the last 5-6 years, maybe wasn't that important or wasn't invested in as much. And I think you're seeing a trend, a definite growth in our staff as well as different programs around the country where special teams isn't just another play. It's something, if you're an offensive coordinator, you want the ball on the 40-yard line or the 25. So it adds that element where you're not just doing it because the head coach assigned you to do it, but it's full ownership where, all 10 of the assistants are involved, and then you get graduate assistants who are involved in the scout team depth chart, the scout team schemes that they're going to give each day. So that's 4 or 5 GAs that are also involved. And it's really good because then, the players see the importance of it, and everybody's got a piece of it, a role in it. So it makes it even more important.
You spend a lot of time breaking down everything you guys do, looking at practice film, looking at the techniques you're using, obviously scouting up the opponent and looking at those same types of things with them. For you, where are you able to find some of the opportunity that exists within special teams, maybe that other people don't see, or if you don't have this setup where you have an analyst and somebody who's really breaking that down, maybe a place where coaches and smaller staffs can start to look for those. Where do you see the opportunities in special teams?
Yeah, I think in my role, I'm able to watch every player, every play, and kind of stay ahead for the rest of the staff. So say there's a gunner on a release who either released the wrong way or didn't use the proper technique to, get past the jammer, then that's something that I can stay ahead on and tag and make those guys aware, whether it's the player or the staff member involved in that. That's something that I think it adds a lot of value in the staff, that you can have someone who's watching top to bottom every play and can keep track of, who's doing really well, who's got a common mistake that needs to be fixed. And then the next thing I think we're doing a really good job of is relating a lot of special teams play and technique to offense and defense, just keeping special teams as, it's all football, it's all ball. This is going to help you. I know you weren't recruited here to play the right tackle on the punt team, but that's going to help you if you're a running back in pass pro. So just bringing it full circle and being able to stay ahead on individual players and helping kind of help the whole thing run.
How much of the evaluation of players and placement of players work falls on you?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the first one to, bring an idea or a change, or, maybe there's a guy who doesn't have a role, as heavy of a role on O or D or even special teams, to find them a role in special teams. And that's, I think, a big help for just top to bottom roster development. But our staff does a great job. Like I mentioned, that everyone's involved, everybody's got ownership. So it's a lot of times it's not just me bringing that up. We've got all 10 of our assistant coaches and the head coach very involved. So we bounce a lot of things off each other, and it's good. It's a good environment where everyone's kind of held accountable, and we all get the same goal. So having everybody together involved in special teams, helps us reach those goals that we have.
So, Coach, looking at the things you do and thinking about how that might translate to other levels or other situations, different types of coaching staff, size of coaching staff, etc., there's still work to be done regardless if you want to be good at special teams. What have you found to be some of the most effective things in being able to have your meetings, communicate, etc., in the most efficient manner?
Yeah, so I think we do a great job of having a daily special teams meeting, and typically that follows a staff meeting where you got everybody in there, and we'll take, whatever it is, 5-10 minutes and run through the plan for the day. So you get everybody in there. That's going to take 5-10 minutes, and we're going to talk about the special teams plan, whether that's for the day or the game plan. Get into different individual players and talk about strengths, weaknesses, must improves. So I think it's a really good setting almost daily to get everybody together on the same page, even if it's redundant where it's a plan you're going to execute for the second time. Maybe there's a detail that someone in the room needs to hear and get executed for the players. So I think having that daily meeting is really good. The other thing that I always try to stay ahead on, and it could just be as simple as walking down to the running back coach's office and, hey, what do you think about this drill, how we're doing this? Or, hey, this scheme here that we're seeing could give us some issues. Here's a solution or two that I see. What do you think? So it's still, communication is undefeated, where you got to go and there's a problem and we all want to find a solution. So going to communicate that. And again, we got some great coaches on staff who have coached for a long time, and they have a bunch of great ideas, and we're able to bounce off each other, where you can't have the mindset of, I'm always right, or this is the way we've done it, so it's got to be the right way. So being able to meet one-on-one in a group setting, and have that as a regimented plan where you meet on it every day, there's no stone left unturned, or nothing's really going to fall through the cracks.
When you look at getting the repetitions that you need in practice, and I'll step back. I mean, I remember my early days of coaching high school football. Actually playing, we did it this way too. We never did individual drills. We just went out and we got a few reps at whatever unit it was. And, in a 5 or 10 minute period, because you're running the full drill and you got to set it up, it's not the most efficient way. So when you look at the way you guys break down your practice time between individual or small group and then whole unit, what does that look like for you? And you mentioned even looking at helping coaches create drills or tweak drills to handle things. How do you fold that all into the time that you have in practice?
Yeah, so through spring and fall camp install, we try to kind of follow the mode of whole part whole, where the players see the big picture. Here's the whole scheme, whether that's in a meeting setting or a jog through setting. And then we'll break it into parts where it's, the right side of kickoff is working, the left side of kickoff is working. So then they get to see their individual technique, their individual job responsibility, and just focus on those details where they're not worried about 11 on 11. They get to refine and get down their technique, their job responsibility. And then once we train it that way, we put it all together. And that could be a half line setting, 11 on 11, and then go to full. Or if it's a lot of what we do in a team period is we'll do a condensed set where kickoff, we may start on the 50-yard line and jog it down. On punt, we may change the tempos from rep 1 to rep 2. So we'll just worry about the protection and the release first, where you're only going 5 yards, and then we'll reset and get a full cover rep. So trying to save legs as well as, get the most efficient work you can, where you get 4.5, 5 minutes to get a 8-play script for punt or one of the other units. And you want to be as efficient as possible, getting the right reps in, getting the right guys in those plays. So there is a lot of prep on that, a lot of coordination with scout team logistics, managers, but just getting that whole plan together and then getting in an efficient setting for a team period has been really good.
What have you found to be the best ways to organize your scout teams, especially as the season gets going, so that you're not wasting time on the field?
Yeah, so we put the charts in the meeting rooms on the TVs. We'll post it in the locker room, and we'll do the punt team, and then right below it is the scout punt return team. So everybody knows where they are. And we've got a great set of GAs here that helps coordinate that. And much like we do with the special teams units, we'll break the GAs up. The support staff will break them up into different individual responsibilities for the scout teams. So they take pride in that, and then always reward the scout team for great effort. We'll give them a reward if they block a kick in practice or make a great play on one of the special teams units. So keep them involved. And then the next part of that, why it's important, is the GAs are getting trained to coach a certain position, a certain technique, and they get invaluable experience there. And then from a player standpoint, so many times a guy has done really well on scout team and he earns his way into the 2 deep. And a lot of times I've seen, get a starting role on special teams. So that all kind of works upward, and it's a really good setup.
When you look at the opportunity you've had in becoming an analyst and looking at, big picture, maybe where you want your career to go, what advice do you have to those guys out there who maybe are looking at, an opportunity to stay on the field, and maybe it's in a smaller school situation versus being able to go to a bigger program and be in an analyst role? Looking at those two things, where do you see the opportunity for somebody in that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you make the most of, the hand that you're dealt, and you play it as well as you can. There's certainly a lot of different ways to get where you want in this profession, whether that's, maybe coaching even in high school or a lower division in college. And, you do a great job anywhere, like people are going to recognize that and find out about it. So if it's, staying at a smaller school and coaching a role there, you have aspirations to move up, into a Power 5 or Division I, then I think that's something you can do. And then the other way is, if you're in a GA or analyst role, you're still making connections, you're still learning a lot, and you can run with either path, and I think get what you want out of it.
From the other aspect of that guy who is able to step onto the field, they have recruiting responsibilities. They're a big part of, you mentioned watching your compliance type things. So those guys are certainly, taking the culture that the head coach puts in place and teaching that to their players. So for somebody who's in that analyst role and looking to be able to grow in those regards too, knowing that if you want to get on the field, those are important things. How do you develop yourself in those ways?
Yeah, I think recruiting is nonstop, and it's the lifeblood of any program. That's really the most important thing. So finding roles, even in an off-the-field role, where we're designated areas, territories for recruiting. So building relationships in those territories, and then, previous contacts that you made, keeping up with them. And then basically everything outside of getting on the road, you can still accomplish. You can do the film evaluation. You can make your recruiting database and keep up with it and keep up with offers and camps. And the ultimate goal is to get really good players on campus. So, just because you're not a accountable coach or an on-the-field coach, that's still something that can definitely be accomplished in an off-the-field role.
Coach, what about the culture building side of things and, what you're able to do? You don't have a position, but you're highly involved with the whole team because, most of the team has some kind of a role in special teams as well. So what's your role as an analyst in being able to contribute and help build that culture? I heard you mention ownership and buy-in several times through our conversation. So what's your role in that?
Yeah, I think the way we have it set up is we do 10 different accountability teams where the whole team's split into those, and I have a piece in one of those accountability teams. So that's one setting that's great. And then, I can still text or, tell guys to watch some plays and maybe give them a pointer without stretching it out too far. And that's one way. without actually actively coaching on the field, there's still some things that you can get communicated to certain players on a technique or a certain responsibility on special team. That's one way. And then really just being involved in offense and defense, them seeing you being around, and, we want you to be not only a great special teams player, but have a role on offense and defense. There's usually more plays in a game on offense or defense. So that's where a lot of the time spent and invested. But, we still want guys to have a role on teams where we've got quite a few starters that are playing on special teams. So, yeah, just being around, being involved in the day-to-day, even if that's a lot of times sitting down at lunch with them, learning something new about a guy, or, going out to eat with a position group or an accountability team. And the way our program's set up, there's a lot of avenues to get around guys and grow those relationships, even, outside of being a player.
So, Coach, when you look at everything you do as a coach, whether that's been in your analyst role here or in previous stops where you've served in different roles, what would be the one thing you do as a coach that really is something you feel gives your players the winning edge?
Yeah, I think I'm involved in or responsible for most of the meeting tapes, and I take a lot of pride in having extreme detail in those, as well as trying to find new and different ways to teach. Not everybody learns from X's and O's on a PowerPoint. You got to sometimes pull an NFL player who made a great play on special teams, or use different programs as an example. So definitely the detail of what's presented to the players, that's a really big deal. And then different ways that they can learn, grow, adapt from what we're asking them to do. Those are things that I'm obsessed with, that hopefully makes an impact.
Coach, what's the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Twitter. It is TQ Hancock, and definitely hit me up on Twitter. And then my school email is tyler.hancock@mail.wvu.edu. But yeah, we'd love to have some guys reach out and talk some ball.
Coach, I really appreciate you talking ball with us and taking some time out of your schedule, and best of luck to you and the Mountaineers in 2021.
Yeah, Keith, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again for listening to the Coach and Coordinator podcast. Please check out all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. We've got some great things coming for you in May, and for the last 3 months or so of this offseason, we'll be back with All In on Offense and our deep dive on defense. We had some great interviews with coaches, as well as some quick casts that we'll throw in there. Check out all we're doing again at coachandcoordinator.com, and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.